Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving into a concept that sounds, honestly, like a total paradox: physics beyond infinity. We're going to demystify exactly how theoretical physics went from completely throwing away mathematically broken equations to, well, fully embracing them. It's this wild journey that totally reshaped how we understand the laws of the universe. And you'll see why. Sometimes the math actually has to break for us to see the real picture.
So let's dive right into this paradox. Think about this. Can a mathematically broken theory, one that literally spits out infinity when you try to calculate something, still perfectly describe reality? I mean, imagine trying to measure a table and your ruler tells you it's infinitely long. You toss the ruler, right? For a long time, the answer in physics was a hard no. You throw the broken theory away. But to understand why the modern answer has completely flipped to an enthusiastic yes, we have to confront this massive mid-century crisis, a time when quantum calculations were just inexplicably exploding into infinity. Section 1. The Infinity Crisis.
To really grasp the sheer scale of this headache, we gotta travel back to the 1930s and 40s. This was the golden age of quantum electrodynamics. Physicists thought they were right on the verge of decoding the universe, but they hit this absolute brick wall. Whenever they tried to calculate anything beyond a super basic approximation, say the mass of an electron surrounded by a bubbling soup of virtual particles, their equations just blew up. The answer was literally infinity, not just a huge number, actual calculation-destroying infinity. So what do? Well, they came up with this brilliant mathematical magic trick called renormalization. They essentially swept those infinities right under the rug. They figured out how to absorb those pesky infinite quantum corrections into a few measurable physical constants. Basically, you take the infinite math, hide it inside a number you can actually measure in a lab, and boom, suddenly the theory works. You get finite, testable predictions.
But of course, there was a huge catch to this sleight of hand. Now, legends like Richard Feynman, Julian Schwinger, and Shinichiro Tominaga famously used this trick to fix quantum electrodynamics. But then Freeman Dyson came along and proved it only works for a very restricted, super lucky class of theories, the ones they called renormalizable. For everything else, the math was a total disaster. You see, for non-renormalizable theories, you'd need a brand new experimental measurement at every single mathematical step, just to cancel out the new infinities that kept popping up. You'd literally need an infinite number of parameters. And if you have to run a new experiment every single time you want to calculate something, your theory can't predict anything. It's completely useless.
Section 2. The breaking point. Because other fundamental forces in nature absolutely refused to play along with this tidy math, the physics community was plunged into a decades-long panic. Tracing this timeline is fascinating. Back in the 1930s, Enrico Fermi built this incredibly elegant theory for the weak nuclear force. That's the force responsible for radioactive decay. But the math, heavily non-renormalizable. It just blew up. It actually wasn't until the 1970s that Gerard de Hooft and Martinus Veltman finally fixed the electroweak force, which snagged them a Nobel Prize. But the real game changer, the shift that altered the whole philosophy of physics, that arrived in 1982 with Kenneth Wilson's Nobel Prize-winning work.
Before Wilson, the frustration was just off the charts. It was so intense that Freeman Dyson, who was honestly one of the most optimistic and brilliant minds of his time, made this incredibly gloomy prediction. He said, the correct theory of the weak interaction might not be found for 100 years. Think about how heavy that is. If a theory wasn't renormalizable, the greatest physicists alive basically thought it was a mathematical fantasy, a complete dead end.
Enter Section 3, Wilson's Radical Revolution. So Kenneth Wilson steps onto the scene and brings this incredibly elegant twist that turns all that tension into absolute wonder. He looked at this infinity problem completely differently. It's a profound shift in how we view the universe. It's really the contrast between the old arrogance of demanding infinite perfection and the modern humility of accepting that our knowledge has an expiration date. The old view arrogantly demanded that theories stay mathematically perfect all the way up to infinite energy and down to zero distance. If they didn't, they belonged in the trash. But the modern view, it's much more humble. It accepts that our theories are just approximations. They come with the built-in cutoff scale, a specific energy limit where they simply expire. And beyond that point, it's totally natural for the old math to break down because new physics has to take over. To picture this, think about a simple bucket of water. Macroscopic fluid dynamics does a flawless job describing how that water will splash and flow if you kick the bucket. We definitely don't need to track every single chaotic microscopic H2O molecule bouncing around inside to know how the water behaves. We just average that microscopic chaos away. The macroscopic theory is an approximation, and for our macroscopic purposes, it works perfectly.
And that water bucket analogy leads right into Wilson's massive realization: effective field theory. An effective field theory is a predictive, low-energy approximation of some deeper, unknown microscopic physics, and it's only valid up to a specific cutoff scale. Wilson showed us that a non-renormalizable theory blowing up isn't a bug. It's actually a feature. When the math goes crazy at a certain energy, it's acting like a giant flashing neon sign. It's literally telling us, hey, this is exactly where your current knowledge ends and the unknown microscopic physics begins.
Section 4. The modern paradigm.
Let's look at how this breakthrough turned into the exact recipe that almost every working theoretical physicist uses today. Instead of running away from infinity, physicists now use the super precise 3-step method to systematically deal with incomplete theories. First, you identify the relevant degrees of freedom. So you look at the particles that actually matter for your specific energy scale, and you completely ignore the super heavy ones you can't see yet. Second, you write out the most general mathematical Lagrangian allowed by nature's symmetries. And get this, you deliberately include all those messy, non-renormalizable terms that physicists used to be terrified of. Finally, step 3, you organize those terms by importance using a technique called power counting. It is a brilliant, systematic way to handle the unknown.
Let me give you a mind-blowing example. The mass of the Higgs boson is 125 giga-electron volts. Now, why does that matter? Because that mass is absurdly smaller than the massive Planck scale, which is the ultimate energy scale where quantum gravity is supposed to kick in. The fact that the Higgs is so surprisingly light is actually a glaring hint. It tells us that the entire standard model of particle physics, literally our most successful theory ever, is itself just a low-energy effective theory. It's just an approximation waiting to be replaced by something deeper. And the beauty of this framework is that it works absolutely everywhere in physics. It proves that our very best descriptions of nature are, in fact, non-renormalizable effective field theories. Whether we're using chiral perturbation theory to understand the strong nuclear force at low energies, or stretching the standard model to explain mysterious neutrino masses, or even treating Einstein's legendary general relativity as a quantum theory valid far below the Planck scale. This exact same Wilsonian logic applies perfectly across the board. We are always working with an effective approximation.
Section 5. Taming quantum gravity.
But here's the kicker. Because every single effective theory has to break down eventually at its cutoff scale, we hit a massive, seemingly impenetrable wall when we try to push gravity all the way up to that Planck scale to find the final complete description of reality that's hiding beyond our current approximations. Physicists are actively hunting through radically different theories of quantum gravity. You've probably heard of string theory, which reimagines point particles as tiny, vibrating one-dimensional strings to naturally smooth out that infinite math. Then there's asymptotic safety, which searches for a mathematical safe harbor where the equations just settle down nicely, even at infinite energy. And loop quantum gravity, which suggests space-time itself isn't a smooth, continuous fabric, but is instead built out of tiny, discrete, quantized little loops. What's truly wild right now is how researchers are evaluating all these options. They're actively mapping out which of our effective theories are actually mathematical mirages. They call this the swampland. The swampland is this vast collection of low-energy effective theories that look perfectly fine and consistent on the surface, but are fundamentally incompatible with any true underlying theory of quantum gravity. Just because a low-energy theory works for us in the lab doesn't mean it can actually be plugged into the real, fundamental foundation of the universe. All of this forces us to confront a really unsettling, deeply philosophical question about the very bottom of physical reality. Does a final, truly fundamental physical theory actually exist? Or is nature just an infinite, never-ending tower of effective theories? Are we just peeling back mathematical layers of an onion, finding deeper and deeper approximations forever? Even the greatest Nobel laureates will humbly tell you that we just don't know. We can't yet conceive of what, if anything, sits at the absolute foundation of the universe. As Steven Weinberg so beautifully put it, the future alone will tell. The fact that our best models have expiration dates, that's not a failure, it's not a crisis anymore, it's just a deeply honest reflection of our current experimental limits. It's an open invitation for future generations to keep digging. So, after exploring how breaking the math actually led to some of the greatest conceptual triumphs in all of physics, I want to leave you with this. Do you think there's a final theory of everything waiting for us out there? Or is it really just an endless tower of approximations all the way down? Thank you so much for exploring the universe with us in this Explainers, and as always, keep questioning everything.